Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. We're really excited to have you with us today. We're going to be talking with fantastic John Litchenberg, I think. I hope I've pronounced your name right, John, who's the Instructional Technology Specialist at Falcon School District 49. So we're really excited to have you guys with us today, and let's get to the agenda. So what we're going to do is give a brief introduction to Cisco Meraki, to cloud networking, sort of go over the highlights of why you might be interested in our solution, and then I want to get pretty quickly to the meat of the webinar today, which is our case study. So we're going to be having a fireside chat with John. I have a couple of sort of standard questions I have to ask him about his experience using Meraki products, but we are really going to be relying on you, the audience, to help feed and sort of guide the discussion. So please, please, please type any and all questions that you have for either me or for John into the Q&A box of your GoToWebinar control panel. My good friend and colleague Tanya is with us today on the call, and she's going to be monitoring that and feeding me the questions, so that way we can have the kind of conversation that you guys want to hear. And then John has graciously offered to let us demo the Falcon School District's networks. We're actually going to be looking at a live demo of his production network. And what we'll do is we'll then, if there's time permitting, we'll wrap up with some Q&A and sort of a brief overview. So that's the agenda. The only other bit of house cleaning that I have is just to announce that we do have free access points for the IT professionals on today's call. So if you are a qualified IT professional, you will get an access point. You'll get a 3-year cloud management license with it as well. So it will be fully operational, and all of the features and functionality that we discussed today, vis-a-vis the wireless, will be available to you. So awesome, awesome chance to get your hands on Meraki technology, test drive us in your own environment. And if you have any questions about eligibility, please check that URL at the bottom of your screen. It's meraki.cisco.com/freeap. The only thing that we ask is that you do call us to confirm your shipping information to get that access point to you. We don't want to inadvertently send it to the wrong place. So if you just contact us and let us know where to send that access point, that would be fantastic. And if you are wondering who to call, you should have received a reminder email about today's webinar, or perhaps it'll be in your wrap-up email, but there should be some contact information or a link to contact information for your Cisco Meraki rep in that email, and that's who you want to reach out to. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. If you are unfamiliar with Cisco Meraki and the products we make, you should know that Meraki was actually founded as a private company in 2006, and it was founded by a research team from MIT, and they had been working on a project called the RoofNet project while at school. Now, that was literally a project where they had to climb on top of apartment building rooftops, affix wireless access points, and then try to figure out how to manage those over the internet. So we have been cloud-based since day one, and that project, MIT project technology, laid the foundation for Meraki, the company. So our first product line was our wireless cloud-managed access points. We branched out so that we now have 4 distinct product lines. You can see them there on the screen. It's access points, security appliances, switches, and mobile device management. So we have all 4 of those, and Cisco took note of that, thought it was pretty cool, and decided to acquire us at the end of 2012. So we are the cloud networking group within Cisco. We're doing really, really well. We're committed to all 4 of the product lines I just mentioned, and we're seeing fantastic growth, well over 100% year-over-year annual growth. I would say we are one of, if not the fastest growing business units within Cisco. We've been recognized many times over for our innovation and our technology by IT analysts and the media, and everything that we make, all 4 of our product lines, everything is designed to be 100% cloud managed. So this means that from anywhere in the world you have internet, from any internet accessible device. You can log into your to the Meraki dashboard and view and configure and troubleshoot and manage your Meraki equipment. So I just wanted to throw up a couple of logos here. This is by no means a comprehensive list of our K-12 clientele, but just to kind of give you a sense for the range and the breadth and the depth of the types of schools that we service. And we are well suited to many different types of environments. And in particular, if you are a school or a school district that has to manage multiple campuses or multiple locations, you don't have a lot of IT personnel at your disposal to help manage that and do lots of on-site troubleshooting, and you want sort of an out-of-the-box optimized solution that's easy to manage and navigate and get around in and get set up, you should definitely check out Meraki. We don't subscribe to command line interfaces at all. Everything we do is graphical in this gorgeous dashboard that you'll see when we get to the demo. And we're very, very easy to deploy, in part because we don't have the sort of constraints on scalability or sort of remote management that you might find in traditional solutions. We can actually talk about that. Because the way it works is you're going to deploy Meraki equipment on site, right? So at your schools and your administrative offices, your main campus, perhaps even at homes if you're doing some sort of teleworker deployment. And the Meraki equipment will initiate a secure connection back to our cloud. And by cloud, I mean our data centers that are hosted all over the world. And that connection is secure. It's encrypted twice, once with proprietary encryption and then again using SSL. And it's a small overhead connection, meaning it averages about 1 kilobit per second per device. And the reason it's such a small overhead is that we're using an out-of-band control plane. So what does this mean? This means that the information that's being communicated between the cloud and the device is just sort of the management and monitoring statistics we need to present the information you're going to see in the dashboard, and it's also the configuration information. So pushing, group policy or traffic shaping or firewalling rules or, SSID availability rules and things like that down to your access points. We don't see or store end user data. That goes wherever it was intended to go. So that helps us keep our connection lean and mean to the cloud. Now I was highlighting I was hinting at scalability. So one of the really great benefits to us of being cloud managed is that we don't have the traditional bottlenecks that you would find in the sense that you don't have to buy controllers. You don't need to buy redundant controllers. There's no such thing as AP limits or device limits when you're talking about the Meraki solution, and that's because we have pushed all of that management and control out to the cloud, so we can really grow and shrink with your needs. Literally expanding your network is as simple as deploying another access point or removing another access point if you need to shrink. So it's very, very easy to get up and running. And also there are benefits to having that cloud-hosted management that come about in the form of security and reliability for that back end. So one thing to note is that our data centers are SSAE 16 certified. They undergo daily penetration testing by McAfee. We ourselves are PCI Level 1 compliant for PCI 3.0, so any credit card transactional data, things like that, we're PCI compliant for that. We've had customers that have built HIPAA and PCI compliant networks using our gear, and there's high availability and redundancy built right into the back end. So, in the event of some sort of catastrophic data center failure, you'd be sort of filled over immediately to a secondary. We have high service level agreements for uptime with our data centers, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of reliability and redundancy that's built right in. And when you're looking at all of this and you're thinking about choosing, a wireless product, or in fact switching or security appliances or mobile device management for Meraki for your K-12 environment, there's a couple of key themes or advantages or bucket items that you should think about, and you'll see this when we go through the demos. But just kind of remember that these are the kinds of things that we're really, really known for. One is that intuitive centralized management. So like I said, there's no command line interface. There's nothing complicated about getting set up and started with the Meraki dashboard. We try to make it as easy, as intuitive as possible. We don't want you to have to spend a lot of time training IT staff to get up and running. We want to make it really, really easy for you from anywhere in the world to be able to manage your gear. So to that end, in terms of being able to manage remote sites and having that flexibility for distributed environments, we've built in a lot of diagnostic and troubleshooting tools, a lot of visibility, a lot of control right into that dashboard. And it's a place where you can go to manage not just your wireless, but also your switching, your security appliances, and your mobile device management, all from one pane of glass. And you're going to see that visibility. You're going to see that control. We'll go through and we'll show you some of the things that you can do when we demo the Falcon School District's network. So, without further ado, let's get started with our discussion. John, are you here?
Yep, I'm definitely here.
Awesome. I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your school district and about your role, and I'll just remind everybody again on the call, please type in any questions that you have to help guide this discussion into the Q&A panel of the GoToWebinar little box. That would be great. So John, take it away.
Sure. So Falcon School District, you can kind of see on that map there that there's a really dense area and then lots of little green dots that go out to where there's not a really dense area. We're the fastest growing school district in Colorado Springs. We're the only place left for the city to grow, and we're definitely growing that way. So we've got a lot of challenges with explosive growth. We have, like it says, about 22 school sites. We've got 19,000 students, about 15,000 in our coordinated schools, and the rest is in our online programs. Yeah, and so one of the reasons we chose Meraki is that it's very scalable and it's very easy for us to manage future deployments. We've got a full 2 or 3 new buildings coming online for next school year, and knowing that we can just get access points, have them pre-configured before they even go to the building, and just have a wiring contractor slap them to the ceiling, via where they are on the map. That's all we have to do, and they are literally ready to go. They're very easy for us to deploy, so that's one of the reasons that we chose them. We also outsource our technology, so both our operations department and our help desk are outsourced. And so that's a contract, and one of the things that we knew would most likely happen is as other contractors bid for the contract, we'll need them to come online and be able to move really quickly with a whole new technology set that they might not have experience with. Mm-hmm. And one of the great things about the Meraki dashboard is it's already up, it's already going, and the learning curve on them is fairly minimal. So that's another thing that we appreciate as we've moved through a few different operations people that have managed our network for us.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. One of the things I just wanted to ask, and it sounds like you're kind of alluding to them already, which is, what were the biggest challenges that were facing you, prompting that infrastructure refresh? So I'm hearing growth. I'm hearing the need to quickly get outsourcing folks onboarded to the technology. Were there any other challenges or themes that you were looking to solve?
It was typical multi-points of failure that you're trying to plan for in technology. So one, we wanted to get on a refresh cycle. So now we're working towards a 3-year refresh cycle for our wireless. Mm-hmm. At the time, we had kind of a mismatch with HP and some other various vendors for our wireless, and it was really hard, remembering what was where. So this was seamless, and it's great that it's all on one single pane, and you can sit there and watch the whole district from one web interface. Mm-hmm. We also invested really heavily in one-to-one for Apple, and also for our staff too. So that type of traffic that Apple devices generates is completely different from what a Windows device will generate. Yeah, it's all IP traffic, but Apple's got all your Bonjour stuff that's happening, Apple TVs and all the mirroring. It's a whole new level of bandwidth that you have to support.
Okay, fair enough. So when you were actually going through and evaluating, potential vendors for this refresh, and you ran across Meraki, I always like to ask, were there any additional, any initial doubts or hesitation or concerns that you had about the Meraki solution that were then sort of addressed or rectified through a demo or an eval or once you actually deployed the equipment?
So yeah, we started with you a long time ago, and gosh, you were very, very new when we first started, but just the appeal to us was the single pane and the dashboard and not having to mess with controllers
Mm-hmm.
and all this complicated switch stuff that might or might not with what we're doing. Um, I mean, we were looking at Juniper at the same time. We were looking at HP,
Mm-hmm.
and just the mess of the controllers and having to retrofit or have it, somehow integrate with what we already have in place. This was just a much cleaner implementation
Okay.
for us.
Sweet.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think it does. Let's see. I'm actually going to check and see if we have any questions from the audience before I move on to the next slide. Let me just check really quickly and see what all we've got. So we do have some questions for you, actually. What is the typical density of the access points in your network? So that's a common question. So I guess like how many devices or clients are you servicing per AP in your estimation?
So when we originally had the design build, we were asking for 30 devices per classroom, and this was
Mm-hmm.
back in 2011 to be implemented in 2012. And so we typically have one access point between two classrooms on our map.
Okay.
And at the time, we were close to approaching that, and we probably should have future-proofed ourselves a little bit better. Again, this is why we want to be on a 3-year replacement cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're way beyond that. We're looking at typically 70 to 80 clients connected to each access point. And
Okay.
it's
Wow.
starting to show. I mean, definitely our LAN can support it and our WAN can support it, but the access points, we didn't buy big enough access points to begin with.
I see.
So
Okay.
we're not using it the way they were intended. And that's why we're looking at replacing them with MR34s right now. That's what we have out with our E-rate.
Okay, fantastic. We're getting a couple other questions. So I'm going to put this slide up because this is basically explaining how your network is set up today. And I'm going to ask you, before we get to the other questions, if you could just kind of describe this, how are things deployed over there, Falcon?
So on our map, I think we did MR16s with the scenario I was talking about in our classrooms, and that's our MR16s are what are seeing 60, 70, 80 clients attached to them. And then in our larger common areas like gymnasiums or auditoriums, we put MR24s. And what we're seeing is we're seeing much higher uses in the classrooms, especially where our schools are piloting BYOD, than we are in these common areas. We were really thinking, it's going to be giant lab setting, or we're going to do big collaborative things in these big rooms. And it turns out that really it's still tried and true. Our classrooms are where we're going to see the biggest usage.
Mm-hmm.
So the upgrade that we're implementing is just MR34s, no matter where it is. That's what the
Okay.
access point will be.
Okay.
Definitely 3 antennas will be better than 2.
Great. Right. So, and for the benefit of folks on the call who may not be familiar with us, we do a variety of access points. We have indoor and outdoor models. We have 11N indoor access points, and what John's referring to, the MR34 is one of our new 11AC access points, and we also have 11N and 11AC outdoor access points as well. So the MR34 is our pretty much our top of the line flagship model. So that's pretty cool. We had a couple other questions for you, John, from the audience about your deployment. One of them is, are you using wireless for VoIP phones at all?
Nope, all our VoIP phones are hardwired.
Okay. Another question is, how long has it taken you to deploy this mixture of 530 APs?
So the first deployment was a considerable amount of time because, again, we had a mix of vendors out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so just documenting and correct placement and everything else took a lot of time. However, what's exciting, when we get the new shipment of APs in, we are going to be able to pre-deploy them just directly on the package of where it's going to go in the building by a place marker on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have to be an IT person. We'll have our facilities do it. So facilities will walk out and they will put them up. And once they unplug the old one and plug the new one in, they can move on to the next one. There's no more configuring to do. It will configure itself.
Sweet. I'll do one more question on this slide and then we'll move on. So you had mentioned before, you're using a lot of Apple devices, Apple TVs, iPads, right, MacBooks, things of that sort. There's some questions about Apple and specifically around bonjour forwarding, and have you seen any issues related to that if you're running different VLANs and things like that?
We have. There's multiple issues to consider with Apple TVs. The biggest one is the bonjour, is what they're talking about. We're not VLANing anything right now to isolate it or anything like that, and we're seeing a little bit of congestion on the network because of it. However, one of the new things that Apple TVs are doing is they are able to mirror without being on your network whatsoever. And so we are converting a lot of our Apple TVs to that model, so it creates a peer-to-peer network between the device and the Apple TV. And so that's actually what our solution is going to be, is just remove it from the network. It also, it's super helpful in the elementary school classrooms because Apple TVs are fantastic for playing the next upcoming hit movie, and it's usually like sex tape or something like that. We don't want that in our elementary schools. Even though you can block it, the Apple TV winds up getting reset, and then a parent walks in, and this is just going to be a better, cleaner way to do it.
Right. Okay. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to move. I'm just going to keep moving us along because I want to get to the demo, and then we'll have plenty of time, I think, given our pace, for the remainder of the questions. But I wanted to have you sort of tell us a little bit about the access control that you're implementing. I think you're sort of alluding to it, but sort of how you're segmenting your network into different wireless networks. Do you have guest networks? Are you sort of throttling or controlling traffic at all?
Sure. And one last thing for the question that was asked just before, they wanted to know, I think they wanted a definitive time. How long? We haven't built the project out yet, but I would imagine within 2 weeks we would have all 22 buildings replaced.
Okay. That's awesome.
And so access control. So we do have, when you see our demo, you'll see we do have a core of at least 3 SSID in each building, though we obviously have a limit for much more. It's very, very flexible. We've got churches that rent some of our buildings, and so I have SSIDs that automatically activate on Sunday at 6 a.m. and turn off Sunday at 1 p.m. And it's just an open network that's not allowed to access anything else on our network. Very easy to configure. Our student BYOD network is obviously going to have more restrictions than our open staff network. Not open, but the network that our staff is. And yes, we use the throttling feature there. We also use the fantastic Layer 7 filtering rules. Even though our firewall does some of it, we have a little bit more application control since it's Layer 7 on the SSID. We do not have an open guest network. We have an open enroll network. So if you have a device that can be managed by our MDM and you want to enroll into our network and let us manage it, we do have an open network, but that network is only allowed to talk to our MDM server. So once you complete the enrollment, then the MDM server feeds you the big district master password, and then you're able to freely roam about the network as you're entitled to.
Sweet. And I got to ask, do you have any stories around the stolen iPads? Because I just saw that bullet point. That looks really cool.
So the network that we're going to look at probably is our middle school, where our biggest one-to-one is. And I would say at least once a day I will get a frantic call from an assistant principal saying, the device was on the student this morning and they can't find it now. They just told us about it now. 3 hours. Can you find out where it's been? Can you ping it? That's what they always say. And I don't know where they got that word from. But that's my trigger. I go into my dashboard, I find the device, and I am able to pinpoint where that thing is within 20 feet by just looking at the event log of where it's moved through the building on the access points. I have had kids pick up other kids' iPads and walk out the building with them before they're supposed to go out. And I have literally had my security team line up the timestamp on the video feed with the timestamp on Meraki's dashboard event log and know exactly which individual walked out the building with the iPad.
Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. And then that last bullet, like blacklisting student devices on the teacher network. So kids have figured out how to get on the teacher network, I guess, and you're able to get them off?
We had an employee do something really bad and take our big SSID key out of his computer. So he fished it out of there, and he wanted kids to be able to be on the network with him as he was doing stuff, so he just wrote the district password up on the whiteboard.
Oy.
And so we had this issue where suddenly 400 devices popped up on one network one day, and the next day it was 2 networks, and it was 3 networks. So for a while we could keep up by just finding the students' devices and blacklisting them, and then when we had a plan in place, we just refreshed everyone's Wi-Fi password with a new one.
Right. Okay. All right, cool. So I think this is the last slide before the demo. So what, in your estimation, if you had to say, let people know, a few key bullets about your experience with Meraki and sort of give us a sense of what your future plans are, what would they be?
Kind of what you have outlined here. I mean, I can definitely hit all those with stories too, but one of the big things when you're considering vendors is, it's never going to go right 100% of the time. So what happens when stuff is wrong? And the times that I've had to call, the fact that the person on the phone helping me has access to my dashboard too is fantastic. I mean, they've always been super helpful. We've had a couple of times where we can't find access points that we've purchased in our inventory because we haven't installed them yet. They were spares. And every time they've been super helpful, pulling the inventory back in. Oh, you just have to go here. Definitely for troubleshooting, they've been great for that. We had an MX firewall appliance, and all of our experiences with that have been great. We sold that to a charter school, but definitely all the experiences I've had with the help desk at Meraki has been great. Yeah, just the easiness of the deployment, how flexible it is, the dashboard with a single pane of glass that I can just see everything that's going on in my network. All of those are huge things, and it just works great.
Great. All right, I'm going to just check my questions really quickly while we switch over to the demo and see if there's anything there that perhaps you can address while we log in. Oh, you're getting some sympathy about the end users and giving the passphrase away. All right, let's see. So some of these questions I think we're going to definitely address when we go through the demo. One question that might be interesting that you maybe can speak to is, have you gotten any sort of feedback about the network, sort of the overall user response to its quality, and has anyone ever mentioned anything about speed or lagginess or downtime? I'll let you answer that while we switch over to the demo.
Everyone's experience with speed and lagginess is relative. I mean, if you've ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's that great augmentation people have done on the internet where, the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is now battery power and Wi-Fi. Certainly, wireless networks are a complex beast, and where I am oversaturated currently, which is why we're going through the refresh, I hear complaints for sure. Because we're just out of resource and we need to equip ourselves with more resource.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I just want to double check with you that you're looking at your network. Does this look right?
That's it.
All right, fantastic. So for folks on the phone, what I did prior to this webinar to save a little bit of time is I opened up my web browser, went to dashboard.meraki.com. Like I said, John has graciously allowed us to view his network, so I was able to log in and get basically to the overview page of his network. And you guys are based in Colorado Springs, so I guess if I click in here, I can see a little bit more information. And John, as I go through, definitely let me know where you wanna focus. Is there a particular wireless network you wanted to dive into at this point?
Yeah, and people are seeing red on their screens, just so everyone's probably experiencing this with me right now. So the red is because this is a good bullet point, everyone's embroiled in testing right now, and we've got a number of Chromebooks and iPads out there so we can run our online testing. The great thing about another feature from Meraki is that all of my spare access points, I created this new new network named Wireless Testing. I take these APs, I walk into rooms where we might be saturated, plug in the AP, set that access point up on top of a closet, and walk out and know that that access point has already been configured, it's ready to go for the test, and I can go to the next classroom and plug another one in. And then I also know that when I'm done with testing, as soon as I'm done unplugging all those access points, I know that my thing is going to turn red and I've reclaimed all of my access points and put them back in storage.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And to your point, you can always come in here, in this sort of networks and the overview page and see statistics about any given wireless network, do things like sort by usage or, to his point, see when things are offline or online or if there's been any reboots and see how many offline devices that you have. So John, I'm going to let you direct this. Which wireless network do you want to dive into?
It's going to be PZ-SMS.
Oops, PZ-SMS. This one?
There you go. Yep.
All right, fantastic. So we'll dive in here. And for the benefit of folks on the call, right, so we found his wireless network out of many different sites that he has networks deployed at. And so now we're sort of getting an overview of this particular wireless network. So right away, we're getting some information about the number of clients that have connected in the last day, the sort of amount of traffic that's passed by, and you can see he's placed his access points on a map. We integrate with Google Maps, so you can actually get sort of a typical map view or a satellite view, and these little numbers on these access icons you typically indicate sort of the cumulative number of clients that have connected in a given day. Although I think you can actually, edit this if you want to see clients that are actually currently connected in real time. You can do that, and you can dive into any single one of these access points. I'll just pick one that seems to have heavy usage right now, and dive in and get sort of statistics and health and configuration information directly about that access point. So we can see right away the model of access point it is. It's an MR16. We can see that it's green and it's healthy. We can see information about how it's connected to the internet and to the rest of the network, at what speeds, and even to using what IP addresses and gateways and things like that. You
Can I
see
stop you with one more fun thing?
Yeah, go
See
ahead.
right underneath where you're highlighted, and it says D16?
Mm-hmm.
So this is plugged into an HP switch, and a very, very old HP switch. This is the access point has picked this up all on itself. It knows what IDF closet it's in and what port it's connected to. So even in the dashboard, I know I can go right to my switch closet right now and go find port D16 and know where that thing is. I didn't plug that in. It automatically picked that up from the switch.
Which is awesome. Totally awesome. Thank you. That's actually a great tidbit. But yeah, like all kinds of information. So, SSIDs that are being broadcast, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the really cool things about this page, and this is the case for all of our equipment, not just our access points, but our security appliances and our switches as well, is you have this great information here. But then you have this section for live tools. So this is where we built in diagnostic and troubleshooting tools right into the dashboard so that you can actually come in and troubleshoot your Meraki equipment. So right away we're seeing that on this one access point you're servicing 43 client devices in real time. Here they all are. You could sort by usage and see if any one particular client is using up more bandwidth than the others. You can see which SSIDs they're connected to, their signal strength. You could ping these clients if you wanted. You can go in and get information about channel utilization in real time just to see whether you've got interference. You can, obviously ping clients, check your ARP table. These are all sort of tools that a given network admin is probably very familiar with. And you can also see statistics about uptime for the access point. So if there were chunks of red or little slivers of red here, you'd see reboots or downtime for the AP. You can see, other access points in the vicinity that you may or may not be meshing with. So lots of really useful information just from this one particular view. But the key view, I would say, the view that clients like the most, just if you're going to come in and try to get a sense for who's bringing what on your network, what applications are being consumed, the number and types of client devices, it's going to be this clients page. So what you're looking at is truly a real-time configurable report. You can actually come in and say, all right, for a given time frame, I want to see statistics about this information. There's a lot of different things that you can look at. I'm just going to select a couple here. I'm going to drag these guys over. And you can do things like say, okay, I know that I had nearly 1,000 unique client devices connecting to this particular wireless network in the last week. Here they all are. Some of them are currently online. Some of them were online in the last week but are not presently available. I can see that for the most part it looks like obviously these are all wireless clients. It's a wireless network. But I can do things like say, how many iPads connected in the last week. So we had 535 unique iPads, and of those, who's online right now? So we've got 322 iPads currently online on this network right now. That's pretty fun. You can do a search by, by manufacturer. You can do a search by, let's see, even operating system. Maybe we want to see if we have any legacy operating systems that we need to worry about from a security perspective. So you can search by IP address, manufacturer, operating system, the description of the device, username if you're integrating with some sort of authentication mechanism like Active Directory or Radius. I'm probably forgetting something, MAC address, things of that sort. So this is called client device fingerprinting. It's a key feature of Meraki gear. It's innate, it's built in. There's nothing you need to install on the client side to have this level of visibility. And similarly, we do application fingerprinting as well. So this is where you can come in and actually see where your bandwidth is going. And one of the benefits to us of being cloud-based is that we've algorithmically classified and tagged hundreds of websites and applications. So we can actually dive in very quickly and see, as new applications and websites come online, whether or not your bandwidth is being consumed by them. And again, nothing you need to install on the client side to make that happen. So right away we can see, if there is a particular category of application that we want to dive into and get a little bit more information about. In this case, Google Video, we can see a bit of information about it, and we can see the top consumers of this particular application, which is Google Video. So here you go. There is actually also a setting that you can enable to actually see the specific destinations and websites and active time spent per client there if you'd like, and you can turn that off for privacy reasons. It looks like, John, you might have done that, but that also helps inform policy decisions, particularly around if there's any one particular or couple handful of particular client devices that are really sort of abusing a particular application. John, do you mind if I actually dive into one of these and show the sort of client view? Or okay, great. So let's just click into one of these. So what you're seeing, essentially, this is the sort of default type of information and default visibility that you get if you deploy Meraki access points, for example. So you're actually going to see for a client device that was last seen, I guess this morning at 11:06, you can see which access point they were connected to. You would be getting real-time signal strength if they were online currently, and you can see statistics about that client. So similar to what we were seeing before in aggregate for the entire network, you can come in and see, okay, here's the sorts of applications this client's consuming, here's its bandwidth statistics for the last week, and this might be enough information for you to go in and apply a policy. Maybe there's some decision or action that you need to take, and you can apply policies. You can even apply policies based on wireless network. So certain networks maybe should be blocked off from access, or maybe you want to whitelist a particular device, or if you have throttling or shaping policies based on SSID, you can employ that, and you can come in and see, is this device on the right network? Is it getting the right IP address? Can I ping this device? So really neat visibility, and you can see how it was connected as well. Again, we're looking at wireless. So the other thing that I want to just sort of highlight, just some key features of the wireless. One of which is how do you translate this visibility into control, and it's really, really easy to do. You can come in and basically set either SSID-wide settings and policies or group policies. So if you're integrating with Radius, local Radius server or Active Directory or LDAP, what you can do is basically push out policies to users or groups of users that have authenticated, or you can always go and find devices like we did earlier in the demo when I was searching for iPads, and then select them all and apply policies out that way. But if we were going to create a policy, I'm just going to pretend like I'm creating a policy here. I won't save it, but you can come in, you can name a policy. You can actually schedule when you'd like this policy to be in play. Maybe it's a policy that you only care about being applicable during school time. And then what you can do is actually come in and basically get custom firewall and traffic shaping rules. And this is where you're actually going to leverage that visibility that we were talking about before. So you can come in and you can, apply your normal layer 3 firewall rules based on protocol and source and destination ports and things like that. But remember, you have that incredible visibility into applications. So what you can do is you can actually come in and say, actually I want to block peer-to-peer. Or maybe I want to block BitTorrent because that's the one that's causing me the most grief. And you can just keep adding these sort of block rules at layer 7. Or if you don't want to outright block an application, you want to prioritize it or throttle it in some way, that's where traffic shaping comes into play. So you can actually come in and say, maybe for my, I don't know, maybe Pandora, Netflix, we saw a lot of Google video, and like Hulu are causing me some grief. I can select these applications and I can say, okay, we're gonna throttle this down to a stingy 250 kilobits per second per client device. So essentially, at this point, any device, any user that gets this policy during school hours on weekdays, they're going to be blocked from using BitTorrent, and these applications are going to be throttled immediately. And if I actually wanted to prioritize these applications instead, it's as simple as saying ignore any limits and bumping that up. So very, very easy then to go out and apply policies to get control of your traffic. So that's one really awesome feature of wireless that I wanted to highlight. The other really cool feature, just to show you how easy it is to get up and running, is configuring the networks themselves. So all of our access points support up to 15 unique SSIDs. It's as simple as going into the SSID page, enabling an SSID, turning it on, and then looking at its access control. So you pick the SSID that you care about. Maybe we want to look at a guest network, and you can come in and decide association requirements. We support everything from open, where there's no encryption, to pre-shared key, to integrating with Radius and using WPA2 Enterprise, that kind of thing. And then you can actually come in and decide if you want an integrated splash page to sort of pop up with terms and conditions, or even use a splash page for authentication. You can do that. And you can come in and then say, literally, I'm going to either sort of bridge my wireless network, so I'm grabbing IP addresses from some upstream DHCP server, and the AP and the SSID is part of the LAN. Or if you're setting up a guest network, all you have to do is put your AP in what we call NAT mode. And if you do that, the AP itself will start to issue isolated Class A IP addresses to clients. And that means that the clients can get out to the internet and have internet access, but they can't speak to each other, and they can't access your local area network resources unless you apply firewall settings at the AP level to permit this. So very easy to sort of lock down your network. So I'm gonna just pause. This is just sort of a brief introduction to the wireless, just to sort of give you guys a taste and a flavor. I wanna get back to the presentations. We can answer questions and run through and demo things that maybe we didn't address just now. So just really quickly to wrap up, again, the access points are just one of 4 product lines. If you're interested in wired products or mobile device management, you should definitely consider us as well. And I wanted to throw this up there. I know there's a lot of buzz right now about E-rate, and folks are still trying to wait and see exactly what their E-rate eligibility might be for certain products, and what their funding might be. I am not an E-rate specialist, but if you contact one of our sales reps, they should be able to guide you a little bit better on what the limitations or restrictions may or may not be, and what's available. So I'll just leave this up for maybe another 10 seconds. And there's another slide, I think, as well about E-rate right here. So just kind of giving you a sense for when your filing day is, what your deadlines are, and sort of the offer details here. And these slides, we're going to make these available to you. We're recording this session, so you can always go back and sort of peruse this at your leisure. And you should check with your rep as well about the free access points. I know there is some restriction if you are going to be using E-rate funding to receiving a free access point. So I just was told to notify you guys of that. Tanya let me know. So the last slide here, and then we can get to questions and maybe do some more demo. We should have about 15 minutes for that, is next steps. If any of this looks cool or interesting or something that you want to play around with, totally recommend doing our risk-free evaluation. So everything that we make, access points, switches, security appliances, all of that is available for free eval. We'll pay the shipping both ways, so there's literally no risk to you. You can get it up and running. You can either reach out to your rep, give us a call, go to that URL that you see down there for evaluations. The other thing I would say is check out our website and our blog. It's a really awesome resource. We post all of our new feature, new product announcements up there. There's a lot of really great in-depth how-to articles and sort of solutions, guides, and things like that. So it might be worth checking out our blog if you have any questions or just want to get a better sense of the technology. And then, of course, you can always call us. So I'm going to leave this slide up for a second. I'm going to just check really quickly and see what other questions have come in. And there's a lot of questions. So let's see. So one question that I'll take is, can you use Meraki access points to connect with other brand access points? I guess that's sort of like if you're running a mixed access point environment, how does that work? So that's a great question. So Meraki equipment is standards-based, which means you can deploy it alongside non-Meraki equipment, but there's some caveats. And the caveat is you always have to manage Meraki equipment from our Meraki dashboard. And like John was explaining earlier, you'll have visibility into non-Meraki gear. You might see, if there's downstream equipment like those HP switches or things like that, or upstream equipment. We do end up getting some visibility into those devices, but you can't control them from the dashboard. So you would have at least 2 different consoles or interfaces that you'd have to go log into to manage your gear. John, this is a question for you. I think what sort of internet connection speeds do you have with your internet service provider?
We have a gig.
We
have a gig out and then a gig WAN.
Okay, great. Let's see. We have another question. Do Meraki access points support CDP? That is a very good question. I know our switches do. Because we support CDP version 2 for voice VLANs. I am actually not sure about the access points. I would definitely reach out to a Meraki rep just to verify that. And questions, if I could explain a little bit more about the features of the MR34. Yes, so very briefly, and I would say check out our website, meraki.cisco.com/mr. That'll give you a list of all of the access points and sort of the high-level features and links to documentation like data sheets and white papers and things like that. But the MR34s are pretty much our top of the line indoor access point model. These are tri-radio access points, so and 11AC access points. So you've got the 5 gigahertz radio, 11AC happening. You've got the sort of legacy 2.4 gigahertz radio, operating 11N for legacy clients, and that third radio is actually there for dedicated wireless intrusion prevention. So our product, or I should say our feature for that, is called Air Marshal, and it's built into all of our access points. There's no additional cost or charge there. And actually, there's another question, which is actually that was a good segue into, which is what's the pricing model? How does this work? So if you're not familiar with Meraki, basically you buy the access points and then you buy a license to operate those access points, and the license is all you can eat. You basically decide a time frame, so 1, 3, 5, all the way up through 10 years. That license includes all of your technical support, all access to the cloud management functionality for wireless, and all the feature and firmware updates that we're going to push out roughly every quarter to your gear. So you wake up one day and you find out, well, I have Air Marshal, I have wireless intrusion prevention, or I have location analytics, or any number of things. We're always constantly updating the access points. Let's see. So, John, maybe a question for you. Are your APs set up in any sort of mesh topologies? Are you doing any kind of like meshing there? Have you ever tried to have coverage in an athletic field, for example, where you may not have the wiring to sort of wire out Ethernet cables out to the APs?
So we've never intentionally done a mesh network, but we've definitely accidentally had them done. we had a closet in one of our high schools get damaged when a fire system froze above it. It washed out the entire IDF.
Okay.
So the rest of the building was working fine. However, the mesh network, when we were able to do PoE just to the access points, so give them power, they immediately created their own, they turned into gateways and repeaters and were able to carry wireless signal out to the rest of the building again.
Cool.
which was great, and definitely not what we had purchased it for, but it was great that it was there. We do have a new field, and we will have to use that. We have two MR54s with omnidirectional and unidirectional antennas, and so we're going to try beaming, because it's too expensive to run the cable out there, we're going to try beaming from one access point to another and have one of the 54s support the audience with an open SSID when there's games.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, so a couple questions I think I can take as well, which is the application classification customizable? And the answer is yes. If you actually have, oops, sorry, I'm trying to switch over to my, I don't know what's going on there, but I'm trying to switch over to here. One thing to show you is, so if you have your own homegrown network, applications that you want to monitor, we can definitely accommodate that. In Dashboard, you actually have the ability to go in and specify custom homegrown apps, and those would show up here. Basically, you can actually configure sort of custom, we call them slices, pie slices that you can actually monitor. And so if you do have custom applications, you can define parameters for those that can then be tracked on this page. So that's a great question. Let's see what else. Is our data being shared and kept with Cisco? No. So at the beginning I was saying well, let me qualify that. End user data we don't see or store, so we don't really care about that. All the statistics and monitoring information that you see here presented in the dashboard, that is actually being stored in the cloud. You have the ability, if you'd like, to prevent Meraki from even being able to access your dashboard ever, or preventing technical support from ever being able to see your dashboard or your data. So that is definitely a possibility, and a lot of this data we only guarantee sort of storing for a certain amount of time. So for example, when you come here, we're only going to be providing you with the last month's worth of data. If you actually want to store your own data for longer than that, we have hooks and different ways that you can offload some of this data into your own sort of syslog servers or offsite yourself. But no, we're not sharing or storing any of your end user data at all. Does the dashboard also support Meraki switches? Yes. So if John had deployed switches and security appliances to this particular network, you could actually see those devices, Meraki equipment here. You'd be able to configure them and manage them directly from this dashboard.
We do have a switch network if you want to see.
Oh yeah, let's go. Let's check it out. What's it called?
Let's see. The closest one is scroll down a little bit further.
Sure.
I can't remember the name of it. There you go. That SCHOMLIMBC at MS24. One more down.
This one right here?
That's it. Yep.
All right, let's take a look at it. So if you had switches, for example, you could come in and check out your switches. This is awesome. This is a 24-port switch, I'm guessing. Yep, MS42. Okay. So, for example, we just dove into a switch network. So you can actually see this is the configuration and status page for the switch, so slightly different from the access point, lots of different information here, but again, like I was saying, the same idea where you can come in and see the live tools, and you can go in and see sort of topology views that are automatically generated and clients, and do all sorts of cool things with the switches. So lots and lots of cool information there. Let's see what else we have. Do we support 802.1x authentication? Yes, we do. We also support Active Directory, LDAP, and we have a pretty cool feature which is integration with Facebook if you want to do Facebook logins, typically used for guest networks, but you would then have access to the sort of anonymous aggregate data that Facebook collects that you could then access as well. Do we have white papers or training for our products online? So these webinars we usually record, and you can definitely find recordings of these at meraki.cisco.com/webinars, although I believe we might end up just emailing you guys a URL for this particular one since you attended. There's also a ton of white papers and documentation. If you go to meraki.cisco.com/library, You'll find a bunch of white papers and stuff there, and then all of our user manuals are up at docs.meraki.com. So that's a great question. Somebody's got a request to show the cable test on the switch. All right, so very quickly I'll show you how you run a cable test on the switch. It's a really cool feature. Basically, what you can do is you can select a switch port. Let's find one that's 1 gigabit, so we're not gonna mess it up. You literally do that, and basically this is a remote test between the port and whatever happens to be attached to that port. It's basically collecting telemetry data to go in and actually test every single twisted pair in that cable. It will give you an estimate of the length of the cable too, so right away you can see if you have any sort of sketchiness with old cables or if the cables are too long. So that's one of the really cool switch features. Then we have a good question about firmware upgrades. So how do those work? So the way that works is we will notify you via email and in the dashboard and I don't know, any number of different ways that you have updates available for your equipment. Now you can go in and schedule dates and times and break that out by product line if you'd like for when you'd like to upgrade your gear. And you can opt out as well. So we're not going to force you to take an upgrade that you don't want. You just give us a call if you want to opt out of it. But essentially that's it. You know, at the slated date and time, your gear will start downloading the updates. It will still be servicing clients at that time. But once the gear has been downloaded and installed, if there is a reboot necessary, at that point it will reboot, and typically you'll see a blip of about 30 seconds or so for that reboot. So we're getting some questions about licensing models, enterprise, and systems manager. So Mark, what you're actually referencing is not the access point. That's actually our mobile device management. And we've got a couple of announcements around that. And I would say check our webinar page. We're in the process of doing a bunch of webinars to sort of explain how we're migrating the mobile device management. But essentially, we used to have two separate mobile device management products, Standard and Enterprise, and we're combining the two now so that everybody has the opportunity to have all of the Enterprise features. We're just sort of switching up our model a little bit, and so up to a certain number of devices you can use that version of Systems Manager for free. And of course, anyone who is already using the Standard version of Systems Manager, we're not taking anything away, so you are grandfathered in. And we will continue to honor that promise to you that we made for free mobile device management. But we're going to be running a bunch of webinars about that, so definitely check it out. Okay, maybe I have time for one more question, which is, oh, this is a good one. Talk about the MR32 and Bluetooth. Okay, so if you guys weren't aware, we recently announced a new line of access points, the MR32s. These are also tri-radio access points. They're also supporting 11AC. They support Bluetooth as well. So we actually have a Bluetooth radio in those access points. And the beauty of that radio is it can both basically sort of send and receive Bluetooth information. So in a nutshell, it will recognize Bluetooth devices that are in range and basically show you a list of them. So for asset tracking and things like that, if you kind of want to keep things in the vicinity of an access point, you can view them and see when they leave the range of the access point and get notified. But the access point Bluetooth radio is also a beacon. So if you are developing applications that are taking use of or taking advantage of Bluetooth technology, basically you can use the access point as another beacon and sort of integrate it into your applications. So very cool technology there. All right, guys, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. John, thank you so much for sharing your network and going through all those questions and answering them. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for those of you who asked a question that didn't get answered, have no fear. We've captured these. We'll be forwarding them along to your Cisco Meraki. So when you give them a call to confirm your shipping information about your free access point, be sure to ask those questions again, and they'll try to get an answer to you. But thank you. Have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you again in a future session.